The coldest poisons are not brewed in laboratories, but in the nurseries of the human heart, between those who should share its deepest bonds. In the opulent, silent corridors of a Chicago high-rise, a young man lay dying in exquisite agony, his body betraying him from the inside out. His last conscious sight was not a stranger's face, but that of his own sister, leaning over him with a nurse's practiced concern, the one person he trusted utterly in a city of millions. This is not a story of a random attack, but a meticulously plotted betrayal, a chilling examination of how greed and resentment can curdle the sacred connection of blood into something fatal. At its center is Catherine Suh, a woman who presented a flawless facade to the world, and the brother who never saw the trap until it was irrevocably sprung. Our story begins not with the crime, but with the victim. Kenneth Suh, at 27, was the embodiment of the American dream. His Korean immigrant parents had worked tirelessly to secure. Handsome, kind-hearted, and fiercely loyal, he was a successful commodities trader in Chicago, a young man with a bright future and a generous spirit. Friends described him as the glue of his social circle, the one who remembered birthdays and offered his couch without question. He shared a particularly close bond with his older sister, Catherine, a bond that appeared unbreakable. She was, by all accounts, his confidant. Theirs was a family that had known tragedy, losing both parents within a year of each other. Their mother to cancer, their father to a heart attack leaves that had fallen too soon, leaving the siblings to lean on one another. Kenneth, the protector, made sure his sister was cared for, both emotionally and, as it would later emerge, financially. He saw in her a reflection of their parents' sacrifices. What he did not see was the growing shadow of resentment, the quiet calculation behind her attentive eyes. Catherine Suh, at 31, presented a curated image of success. A registered nurse, she moved through the world with a polished, professional air. She was intelligent, articulate, and well-dressed, her demeanor cool and collected. To outsiders, she was a woman who had it all together, but beneath this veneer churned a different reality. Financial records would later paint a picture of profound instability, maxed out credit cards, luxury purchases she could not afford, a lifestyle spiraling out of control. While Kenneth built his career through disciplined work, Catherine seemed to chase a fantasy, one that was rapidly crumbling under the weight of debt. The inheritance from their parents, a substantial sum, was a shared resource, but Kenneth, perhaps sensing her irresponsibility, was the more cautious steward. He was the gatekeeper, a position Catherine came to view not as protection, but as an insult. A simmering sense of entitlement began to poison her perception. In her mind, Kenneth was not her guardian. He was an obstacle standing between her and the life she believed she deserved. The stage was set with a chillingly mundane act. In late January 1993, Kenneth Suh began to experience sudden, violent bouts of illness. A vibrant young man in peak physical condition was now doubled over with crippling stomach pains and relentless nausea. Doctors were initially baffled, suspecting a virulent flu or a severe foodborne illness. Catherine, the devoted nurse, was a constant presence. She offered to care for him, bringing him fluids, monitoring his symptoms, and liaising with medical professionals. Her concern was noted by everyone. It was a testament to their close relationship. Kenneth, in his suffering, was grateful for her. As he began to recover, the episode subsided. It was written off as a bad scare, a mystery bug, but the shadow had passed over. A trial run. The true horror was yet to begin. On the evening of March 2, 1993, Catherine called Kenneth, her voice laced with sisterly concern. She had made him a special healthy smoothie, packed with vitamins to help him rebuild his strength after his recent ordeal. Could she bring it over? Trusting, unquestioning, Kenneth agreed. He drank the proffered health tonic in her presence. The effect was cataclysmic and swift. Within hours, Kenneth was seized by pains far worse than before, his body racked with convulsions. He was rushed to the hospital, a medical emergency spiraling beyond any doctor's comprehension. His organs were shutting down in a rapid, brutal cascade. Physicians fought a desperate, losing battle against an unseen adversary. They ran tests for rare toxins, for exotic poisons. But in the chaotic rush to save a life, the answers remained elusive. Catherine was, again, the distraught sibling at his bedside, a portrait of familial devotion. On March 9, 1993, Kenneth Suh was declared dead. The official cause, acute ethylene glycol poisoning, antifreeze. The investigation into Kenneth's death began as a tragic accident. How could a young man accidentally ingest a lethal dose of automotive antifreeze? The questions gnawed at detectives. There was no container found in his pristine apartment, no hobby or circumstance that would explain it. The smoothie emerged as a point of interest, but Catherine was his sister. She was a nurse. The idea seemed grotesque. Yet, the financial motive slowly came into focus. With Kenneth's death, Catherine stood to gain a significant life insurance payout and full control of their shared inheritance. The figure hovered around $250,000 a fortune to a drowning woman. Detectives, led by the dogged persistence of Chicago PD, began to piece together a timeline that pointed in one horrifying direction. They learned of Kenneth's prior illness in January. Exhumation and a new, targeted autopsy revealed the truth. That earlier episode had also been caused by ethylene glycol, a slow, testing dose. Someone had been practicing. The case against Catherine Suh began to solidify with the methodical patience of a tightening vise. The key evidence was not a smoking gun, but a paper trail and a chemical signature. Financial forensics exposed her dire straits. More crucially, detectives traced a purchase just days before Kenneth's fatal poisoning. Catherine Suh walked into a Pep Boys auto parts store and bought a container of Prestone Antifreeze. The transaction was recorded. The clerk, remarkably, remembered her a well-dressed, composed woman buying a single jug of antifreeze, an unusual purchase for someone like her. When confronted, Catherine offered a flimsy, shifting story. First, she needed it for her car's overheating problem. Then, it was for a friend. Her car, examined by investigators, showed no signs of such an issue, nor any need for coolant. The narrative of accident and coincidence shattered. This was premeditation, plotted with a nurse's knowledge of dosage and symptomology. She knew what antifreeze did to the human body, how it mimicked a sickness, how it shut down the system. She used that knowledge, not to heal, but to murder. The climax of this harrowing tale arrived not with a bang, but in the stark, sterile atmosphere of an interrogation room. Faced with the irrefutable evidence, the financial records, the receipt, the toxicology reports from two separate poisonings, Catherine Suh's composed facade finally fit. The cool, calculating nurse was gone, replaced by a cornered animal. In a moment of startling, cold-blooded candor, she did not confess to overwhelming guilt, but to overwhelming grievance. Her justification was a whisper that echoed with monstrous entitlement. "He was going to give all my parents' money away," she said, her voice flat. "He was going to give it to charity. It was my money." In that single shocking revelation, the entire tragedy crystallized. Kenneth's kindness, his charitable intentions born of their parents' memory, was the spark that lit the fuse. Catherine saw his altruism not as virtue, but as theft. Her brother's generous heart was, in her warped reality, a personal affront that could only be answered with a poisoned chalice. The turning point was this glimpse into a profound moral emptiness, where sibling love was nothing more than a ledger sheet and murder a simple transaction. Catherine Suh was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There would be no dramatic death row appeal, no last-minute redemption. Her story retreated behind bars, a case study in forensic pathology and warped psychology. But the true haunting lies not in her punishment, but in the stark, simple image her crime evokes. It is the image of ultimate trust violated, of an act of caring a sister, bringing her brother a healing drink transmuted into the weapon of his destruction. Kenneth Suh died believing he was safe, cared for, loved. The horror is in the smile that handed him the poison, the medical knowledge that calibrated his agony, the familial bond that served as the perfect disguise. It is a reminder that the most dangerous monsters do not hide under the bed. They sometimes sit at the kitchen table, offering a drink with a steady, smiling hand. Some poisons leave no trace in the bloodstream, only a permanent frost on the memory of a family. If stories like this keep you hooked, hit subscribe for more.